All right, what's going on, YouTube? This is Boxing Wave. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. This weekend, we're getting Jaron boots Ennis, his return to the ring to fight Tomas Dulorme. It's going to be on Showtime. Pretty good fight. Another step up for Jaron boots Ennis, who's pretty much a top contender at this point. I said yesterday that he's pretty high ranked in all of the sanctioning bodies, all four of them. Okay, he's like at least in the fifth spot in the four sanctioning bodies. So he's coming close to a title fight. You know, if he continues to win, and I believe he's going to win this weekend against Dulorme. Dulorme is a step up though for him. He's definitely the most seasoned fighter that he's been in there with up to this point. He's been in there with Crawford. He's been in there with Abreu. He's been in there with Hank Lundy. He's been in there with Jesse Vargas, Ugas, or Stanionis recently. He's lost the most of these fights he lost, but they weren't easy scraps. You know, he's always given us a good fight. And he hasn't been stopped in a while, right? He's been down a lot, but he hasn't been stopped in a while. Dulorme's definitely stepped up over the years. You know, back then I thought he's always been pretty quick hands. He has a good height. He's like 5'10", has a good reach, and knows how to use it. You know, but back then I felt like his major issue was he had the hand speed, but I didn't feel like he invested much. You know, I didn't think he had the proper timing. I didn't think his feints were real. I didn't think he probed enough. You know, I didn't think he was really setting up for anything. It wasn't real goal. You know, and that's why I said that I don't think back then he invested well. He did pretty well against Crawford, but if you notice, like if you look at that fight, for example, hand speed combinations, but it was the same thing over and over again. You know, you're just doing a double jab, followed it up with a right hand over and over again. You know, wasn't seeing much angles, wasn't much investment to the body. He can definitely punch, but back then he relied solely on speed. All right, he was more defensive though. I would say that, but you know, now he invests more. You know, he likes to mix it up a little bit more, dig to the body, you know, work more on the inside. So he's more of a mixed bag of trips, but I think he's given up his defense. I think he takes way too many unnecessary shots. He's more willing to engage and trade and stuff, but he takes a lot of punishment more in his recent fight. If you look at the Jamal James fight, if you look at his last fight against Stanionis, I think he's taking a lot more unnecessary punishment, and he can't afford to do that in this fight against Ennis, who punches really high, punches really hard. You know, is a knockout artist up to this point. And it may not always be that way because a lot of guys that's, you know, top contenders or top prospects coming up, they get a lot of KOs, and as soon as they step up, they have to rely solely on boxing. All right, so that could be the case. We're yet to see. But Jaron Ennis is special to me. You know, he already looks like, you know, I think as far as the prospects, he's definitely, when he was a prospect, because he's a contender now, when he was a prospect, I felt like he was top three in the sport. And many of us compare him to a Roy Jones Jr. I mean, the level of athleticism and the reflexes that he has. I think Jaron Ennis, I think one of his greatest strengths is he's just able to read his opponent so well and make it so easily, you know. Doesn't have a ton of amateur experience, but his athleticism is able to make him do things that are not normal, you know, that are not traditional. But he studies and he understands the traditional boxers, you know, so he's able to read what's coming before the punches get thrown. All right. People question his defense at sometimes because he puts himself out there a lot. But this is the thing. He's not fighting the level of fighters that's able to really expose him. And even with Dulorme, even though this is another step up for him, I don't think Dulorme has the skills or the ability to expose him. You know, I think we're gonna still see, you know, one of those Boots performances where he's just dominating and winning every round until the fight is over. You know, I mean, he just hits too far, too hard. He can fight from an orthodox or southpaw position and makes it look really natural. Not like Bud though. He doesn't do it in the way that Bud does it. Bud usually comes out as a righty, and then depending on how he feels, he might switch and fight into a southpaw for the rest of the fight. And this kind of switches back and forth mid round. He doesn't. He just gives you a lot to really think about. You can't really figure him out. Plus the angles. He throws punches from really odd angles, and most of the time you can't see him coming. Any way of your defense. If you guard up, most of these guys are going to tend to go into a high guard and just try to tighten up, and this is going to punch through the guard. He's going to punch around it. You've seen a lot with that with Shakur Stevenson this past weekend against Jamel Herring. You can't really guard against him because he's going to attack the body. He's going to attack every open area, and that's another thing. His body shots are vicious. He really, really grinds and digs to the body in a way like most fighters don't. And yes, he leaves himself open, but he's capable of doing that because he has the reflexes to move out of the way. So for all that being said, I expect Ennis to be dominant here up until the point he stops Dulorme. I think Dulorme is going to come out doing well the first few rounds. I don't think he's going to be doing enough to win, but I think he's going to compete with him for the first few rounds. But once we get to around the 4th, 5th, 6th rounds, I think Ennis is going to really start opening up. And the problem with Dulorme is that he always ran out of gas in the later rounds. I think Dulorme is going to have to put so much effort in the earlier rounds just to be able to compete with Ennis, whereas Ennis is going to be on cruise control in those first few rounds. Dulorme is going to have to throw a lot of punches just to make it somewhat competitive. But I don't think he's going to be as effective. I don't think he hits as hard as Ennis. I don't think he has the conditioning long term to compete with Ennis. Plus, he doesn't have the youth as Ennis as well. And he takes way too many punches now. I think really for him, being that they're around the same height, the same reach, I think that he needs to stay on the outside and use his speed, in order to try to make it competitive and, follow his jabs up with right hands. But the problem is with that is that he's very easy to read, even though with that speed and everything, he's very easy to counter on his way in, on his way out. And it's, based on what I've seen from him, he's going to be able to read Tomas Dulorme very easily and outscore him up until he stops him. He's going to stop Tomas Dulorme. I know Dulorme hasn't been stopped in a really long time, and he's fought some really good fighters, but he's been down, and he's been clipped and hit a lot. And guys like Jamal James, Jesse Vargas, they don't have the power that Ennis has. Ennis has the size, the reach, the power, the speed. He has every single thing. And this is why they're comparing him to Roy Jones Jr. already. So I see Ennis stopping him within 7 rounds. I think 7 is the longest Tomas Dulorme is going to go. And even if he is to continue fighting and competing and getting up and showing the heart that he's shown, I think that a towel is going to be thrown in, or the ref is going to wave it off, even if he wants to continue. Ennis is just too strong, too big, too strong. And I just don't see Dulorme having anything that's going to make Ennis, give Ennis any real kind of trouble. All right, so I have Ennis winning this within 7 rounds and stopping Dulorme. It should be a good fight, though, because Dulorme is going to show heart, and he's going to fight back, and he's very explosive in the earlier rounds. So this is why it should be a more fun fight to watch than the Lipinets fight. Lipinets really, even though he's tough and he can punch, he just couldn't get in distance He never found a distance with Ennis. You know, when he tried to make it a physical fight with Ennis on the inside, that's when Ennis really shined. You know, and that's where Limpinets wanted to be until he was there. And that's when he got dominated. All right. And Dulorme, he might force himself to do the same thing because he's getting beat to the punch on the outside. And he might start coming in and then he'll start taking more hits on the inside. You know, that's where the phone booth thing, Ennis can do that too. All right. So I got Ennis dominating this fight, man. But it's good to step up. And he's getting really, really close up there in the rankings, and I can see him fighting for a title really, really soon. All right, at some point, depending on who's champ, whether it's Errol, whether it's Bud Crawford, he's getting really, really close to beating one of these or being in the ring with one of these top guys. You know. So anyway, that's it. Make sure you subscribe again, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.